I'm allowing my future self to edit in because it's a fade in. Basically, you'll hear hey.
Okay,
Anyway,
okay, yeah.
welcome
That sounds like work. That sounds like work for future you. Yeah.
It is, but not really. It's just the way the edit naturally cuts the intro to our episode. I don't know what it is about that.
It was long enough. I thought you wanted me to harmonize, so I was like, "Here we go. Let's do it. We're doing it." The natural competitive choir guy in me is like, "Yep, let's."
Anyway, welcome to Current Cinema, episode 3. We are still not canceled despite everything being taken off of streaming services and whatnot. Thank you to, I assume, President of Current Gen Podcast Network, Tim.
Yep.
Let's just say he's a shot caller. Thank you for continuing to allow us to do our shenanigans.
Yeah. The lights are still on. I don't know why.
I don't know how it's happening. But I'm Jeff. I'm joined by Kyle. I didn't do it in that order last week. I did it at the end.
That should just be the thing now. Every episode, you're like, and I was Kyle, and you were Jeff.
It's a cliffhanger. Who the hell are these guys? Anyway, we're just going to do normal format this week, kind of like we do every week, where it's we're going to cover what we watched, and we're going to do what I'm still calling it Pick 5. And the topic for this week's Pick 5 are like your favorite movies that you'll never watch again. And so, I mean, that's going to create somewhat of an interesting discussion instead of just flat out movies you'll never watch again.
Yeah.
Or like your favorites. Because if it's movies you're never going to watch again, chances are that list is going to be all bad movies. You know, like what a piece of crap that was. No way I'll ever watch that again.
I may have picked movies I was never going to watch again. So that's perfect. But I don't know if I love some of these movies.
That's all right. That's all right. Yeah, only I would say like a handful of these I genuinely... No, actually, you know what? I'm pretty sure I love at least 4. Three of them I feel really, really passionate about. Like, I love them.
You know what? I would say majority I do feel passionate about. Like, these are good movies. You should maybe watch them once, but I'm also sorry that I suggested it.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's the vibe I kind of went with my list.
I meant to... I guess I should open up with... I did do... It is a cinema pod... Well, we're talking about movies here, brother.
Are you talking about film or movies?
I did do Sundance last week. I saw 20 full-length movies, and then I lost count of how many shorts I watched. There were only like a handful. Actually, you know what? The same could be said about features. There were only a handful of both shorts and features that I feel really comfortable singing the praises of. It was actually kind of an underwhelming year, at least for those of us that were watching at home remotely. The stuff that they made available at home, I would say like 5 or 6 of the 20 that I saw were like, you got to, when this comes out, everybody's got to go watch this. This is great. Yeah. But last year the number was much higher.
Yeah.
So it's underwhelming.
It's still a 4th, you know. So it's a it's a good click, but you know it still sounds
cool.
like it underdelivered.
It's still cool too because nobody else is seeing these movies. For the most part, they are movies that don't have distributors yet. So like you know you hear all these stories out of Sundance of Apple Plus just picked up this one movie. You know Netflix just picked up this other movie. Like, so, I mean, that's what the festival's for, to show those movies for the first time so people can acquire them, or distributors can acquire them. So it's cool to be, like, at the ground level on these movies and, like,
sure.
And see the... Because Coda, when that won Best Picture 2 years ago, I guess it was last year, it won Best Picture last year. That was a Sundance movie. Well, that was a Sundance movie, dude, from earlier in 2021. So it's rare that a Sundance movie wins, because sometimes they feel a little too good for voters, and they prefer Misery when it comes to Best Picture, you know. But that movie was just I guess the voters felt it was undeniable. It was just so universally enjoyable.
That's cool. You get to see it like the whole journey. No one knows of it, so everyone won't stop talking about it to it winning an award. You know?
And if any of the movies that I saw from this year that are not documentaries win Best Picture next year, I'll be like, oh, that's not worthy at all. That was a mistake. Yeah, because there was nothing.
No Coda, dude.
There was nothing narratively that like really struck me as like, oh my god, this is huge. This movie is gonna be bonkers at the award season or whatever. But there were at least a couple movies I wanted to mention that I gave it like 4.5 out of 5. Nothing got 5 stars that I saw, but I think there were just 2 that I gave.
They're movies you tolerated but didn't love, obviously.
Yeah, obviously these are trash movies. Not 5 stars. Now I got to find my freaking list because I did some list shuffling on Letterboxd, and now everything's kind of like it's kind of disorganized and disarray, I guess. So yeah, 20. Okay. Actually, there was only one movie I gave 4.5 out of 5 stars. It was a movie. It's a documentary called 20 Days in Mariupol. It's a
Okay.
Ukrainian city, and it's literally just a documentary and filming what happens in this. I think it's one of the first cities to be invaded by Russia.
Oh,
And it's literally just 20 days in that city. Here's what happens, and my God, it
that
fits,
sounds awesome.
It
I mean,
fits
as
category.
awesome as like war crimes can be, I guess, but like,
Yeah, there's a ton
it
of
sounds riveting. Like it sounds like
Yeah.
entertaining. Yeah,
very stressful too.
sure.
But there's this fits in the category of favorite movies I'll never watch again because there's some stuff involving
Yeah.
children that happens in this movie that I'm like, I never need to see this again.
It's not fun, but it's nice to see, like, not nice, again, I'm using all the wrong words here. It's
I know what
interesting
you
to
mean.
see like a unfiltered take of what's happening over there, not
Right.
something like regurgitated through news and everything like
Yeah.
that. And I don't know how much of stuff like that I've actually seen. That's, so
Right, exactly. That's the thing. And it actually turns out the person that was filming this documentary was sending his footage to the news. So a lot of the imagery that would pop up on CNN or whatever was coming from this guy.
Mhm.
And not a lot of times he would not have internet. So like it would be like a brief moment of internet and he would have to send his clips out 10 seconds at a time. Like he wouldn't be able to
Wow.
he wouldn't be able to send full clips out,
Mhm.
because the internet just would be really spotty. But yeah, man, Russia be war criming, bro. They are just like straight up shelling residential areas, and like even though their official narrative is we're only engaging with combatants, it's complete bullcrap. Like it's
Farmers
so
and stuff. Okay.
yeah, I know. Why are you taking out an apartment building? That makes no sense.
Sure. Yeah.
So like really, I think I want to say most of the movie is the documentarian running in and out of the hospital. I think there's like a couple hospitals, and he's just running in and out of there and just capturing like civilian casualties and injuries and stuff, and doctors that are just pissed and just spread so thin, and they're just saying, just capture this, film this, look at what they're doing,
Mhm.
like, and so I mean, yeah, it's incredibly harrowing stuff. It's like kind of reminds me of like the movie Schindler's List, but you're watching this in real time. You're watching it for real happen, and it's horrifying. So I mean, it's like a strong recommendation because I feel like everybody needs to see this to understand where this whole, for some people, performative Ukrainian flag stuff comes from on social media. But like, it really is important, at least to me. And sure, you'll never see it again, but I still think it's worth catching, even if it's a little disturbing.
Sure.
Anyway, that's the only one that was like, and then there's one called Theater Camp, but I'm a little biased. That one I rated 4 out of 5 stars because there's still some polish that's lacking on that movie, but it is about these like mid 20-year-old counselors at a theater summer camp for kids, and it's like theater people poking fun at themselves. As a former theater kid, that resonated big time with me. It felt like a Christopher Guest movie, like Best in Show, but about theater camp. It was really, really funny.
Okay.
Yeah, I think I mentioned that as we were like disconnecting from our last podcast or whatever. I was like, I'm in the middle of watching that, and it's so funny or whatever. And yeah, it turns out it was funny all the way through. It was great. Anyway, so that was Sundance, and I wish there was a bigger nutshell for it. I wish there were more movies to sing the praises of, but that's the main ones, really. We're gonna go to what did you watch, and are there a new movie? Oh yeah, there is a new movie. Okay, so we're gonna go with a couple of quote unquote new movies, and these are actually, I would consider these new movies
These were released within the
these are
last 30 to 45 days.
Yeah, exactly. These are like month-old movies that we're talking
Yeah.
about. And one of them did screen at Sundance, but it released around the same time in theaters in the area, so I was able to see it in a theater locally. But yeah, what did you? I assume it's the movie that you watched last night.
Yeah, it's definitely Violent Night. No, I'm kidding. It's Babylon.
Nice.
I feel you got me real scared about this movie before it came out because I wasn't dialed in. And you're like, boy, people are saying it's like a Baz Luhrmann flick, and like I don't hate, like he's your arch nemesis. I like tolerate him in a way, but like I think his movies are pretty like popcorny, like garbage at best, or whatever. Mm-hmm. And I got afraid because I was like, oh, that's not really Damien Chazelle's style, So like I hope that's not the case. And boy, was this movie just one of my favorite movies I saw all of last year, or considered coming out last year. Ended up making it in my top 10. I think it got top 5. I think it ended up being number 5 or something like that. So it's like, it really splashed for me. And I thought this movie was just absolutely fantastic. I had tons of moments where I was like laughing out loud to myself. Usually if I'm watching a movie by myself, like laughing out loud, it's a big task. I'll still say a movie is funny, even if I'm just sitting there like silently in my mind going, ha, that's kind of funny.
Yeah.
Also, like that movie was really good.
I literally do the same thing with stand-up comedy. I just watched like a Louis C.K. special. Sorry to everybody that's listening if you're not a fan because of past transgressions. I get it. Everybody has a different line. I get it. But it's the same thing. Like on paper and in my head, I know the material is hilarious.
I know what comedy is, and I know
watching it at home, I'm like,
Yeah, add a buddy though, and you're both cackling. Like same special, you know what I mean? So yeah, that's just kind of this movie. I actually was literally laughing out loud, and I would pause it, and I'd be like, "Hey, I'm laughing at this right now, Jeff." Giving you kind of live updates because it's a 3-hour movie. Doesn't feel it at all. It's got some of the best editing I've seen in a long time. A lot of cut to and then comedy bit. A lot of just really well done. I don't know, just the way that the score and the scenes build up and their chaos and like just one complements the other so much. There were just so many moments where I was leaning forward or smiling or kind of like not knowing if I should be smiling or whatever. Like just the chaos of the moment like really took you for a ride. And I kept on calling it that last night. I was like, this was a ride of a movie. Yeah. Like when you go to a Marvel movie, it's a ride. Like you're riding an amusement park ride. You know what I mean? Sorry to steal Martin Scorsese's beautiful criticism of Marvel. You know?
Yeah, I know.
But like that's what it is. It is like it's designed for you to feel like those ups and downs of a roller coaster or whatever. But like this like controlled my just that vibe or whatever in a much bigger way than any movie has in a long time. And that's just because of the way that it's shot and just the debauchery going on screen and just the way that everything just unfolds. It's just it's unlike any movie I've seen in a long time, and it was awesome.
Pretty debaucherous. I was as we were talking, we've talked about it quite a bit in chat already because there's a lot to dissect in the movie.
Sure.
But it's pretty debaucherous right at the beginning. Like somebody's getting shit on right away, and then like the next scene somebody's getting pissed on, and like it's
those things are happening. Yeah.
Those things are happening.
In abundance. It's not like quick, like
there's some
quick, and you'll miss it. Like it's happening in the background.
Yeah. There's so I mean, I guess the setting of the movie for those that aren't aware, because it sounds like a lot of people have not seen it still, based on the box office numbers. But it does take place in that golden age of the silent film era in Hollywood, and it's kind of about the transition to sound pictures, which should sound familiar to anybody that's seen Singing in the Rain. I mean, that is the premise of Singing in the Rain, but there's a reason that's the premise. And they do find a way to explain why it's so similar. Let's just phrase it that way. Why it's so similar to Singing in the Rain. It's very deliberate. It's not like trying to rip off something and do it better. It's quite literally about the cyclical nature of Hollywood, the life cycles, I guess, if you will, and the people within it that struggle with that. Like people
either adapt or don't, or drown or swim. So,
but even more than that, I mean, deep down, the movie is really about like assimilating into a whole culture in Hollywood. Like Manny was Manuel at the beginning, right? And then he kind of, for lack of a better term, whites his name up, and he's like, I'm Manny now, call me Manny. And he's like assimilating to the way, like he starts eventually mirroring Brad Pitt's look, Jack Conrad. He starts like looking like him a little bit, and starts compromising his own morality and like abandoning his Mexican identity and calling himself Spanish, and stuff like that. So like, I mean, there's definitely something about the way, there's definitely something there with his story, trying to assimilate to Hollywood and how the Hollywood machine, I guess, treated people of color at that time, especially Sidney Palmer, the trumpet player, who knew his worth the whole movie. The whole movie, he is talking crap to his bandmates. Stop playing flat, dude. Get that flat crap out of here. He knows his worth. So the minute that they stepped on his toes or something like that, or asked him to do something that compromised who he was as a person, he's like, I'm good. Like, I'm good. I'm out. I can just go play this somewhere else, Like, I don't need this, That was a great... I loved including a character like that in the movie. somebody who was just like kind of like really couldn't be bothered with the whole Hollywood thing. Like, yes, it's nice when you succeed in that area, in that realm, but
Sure.
he's like, I don't need it. Like, and that was cool to have a character like that in the movie.
I agree.
Yeah, but Margot Robbie as Nellie Leroy, dude, what a character! What
she is
I
know she's like the star of the movie. Where literally a scene stealer though. Like this is like the performance of her career to me. Like I really enjoyed like everything about her character's arc, but also just how she like played it, and just the contrast it was to Manny's character, who his whole identity was assimilating so he could reach his dreams. And she was on the same path. I just want to reach my dreams, but there was no assimilation about her. And, she was going to always do things her way and carve her own path and everything like that. And it was cool, because they're kind of like a will they, won't they item the whole movie,
right?
Because like their worlds keep on kind of colliding here and there just because they're in the same business. And man, there're just so many great moments like where like that chaos gives way to like really poignant, like thoughtful moments about the cyclical nature of Hollywood, like you were talking. And then like things will just immediately ramp back up. And we were kind of comparing like, what would you even say this movie is like, because it's so unlike anything. But it kind of has an air of aimlessness, kind of like Once Upon a Time in Hollywood does. A little more focused. I would say with like its character arcs and stuff like that.
I'd agree with that because Tarantino was more like, look at what it was like. Isn't it cool being in this world?
Yeah, you're just Babylon, kind of a fly. You're a fly on the wall here.
Yeah. Babylon is more like, I mean, like you're saying, it's focused. It's definitely more. It wants you to be an audience in that world, not in the way that Tarantino did it, but like the characters come first, and then you being in the world comes second, basically.
Yeah, right. And then the other one was like Boogie Nights, just that way that like just the kind of chaotic, debaucherous nature. Even some parallel scenes that kind of happened, that kind of have similar vibes, and not that they were even the same time frame or anything like that, but it just kind of goes to show you that a movie that was based in the 20s and a movie that was based like what in the 70s for Boogie Nights, the same kind of stuff was going on in terms of just how people let loose and partied and stuff like that. So
I think there were some people that at least one person I've heard that was like they didn't live like that in the 20s or whatever, and I'm like, they probably did. I mean,
maybe, I don't know.
If the drugs were around, they were probably doing it.
Yeah.
We don't have the documentation.
To
support it.
Everyone knows that everybody was a saint until World War II happened. It just screwed us all up, Now we're all deviants and
that's what
all these hippies everywhere. And
I did like too that something I never considered about silent movie actors is that they were kind of considered circus acts for the industry.
You illuminated this for me. I didn't know anything about this. Yeah,
I didn't know about it either until like, I mean, the movie talked about it a little bit about like, Jack Conrad has a line where he's talking to the critic played by Gene Smart. Gene Dumb, right?
Right, guys.
But he's talking and he's like, the signs on the door said, and it's in the trailer too. He was like, the signs on the door said no actors and dogs allowed, and I changed that. So like people were looking down their noses on actors in that space because it was just like, y'all are just you're not really doing anything on screen. You're just silent movie actors. It's not a big deal, And you can even, that's kind of reflected in how they carried themselves on set. They acted like a circus act when they were on set. Look at the movie set. On both of them, even though they were on different movies, seeing Nellie Leroy do her first gig and how she's kind of like, what's going on, taking everything in. That set is just as chaotic as Jack Conrad's war epic that he's filming at the same time. So they just embraced the nuttery, I guess, of all of everything that was going on around them. And man, this movie is just like it's just a drug trip of a movie, and not in like a sense where yes, there are some trippy scenes, especially towards the end, but in terms of like you start on this crazy high, you are just thrown into that party. High. You're thrown into that party with Manny, and that's like his first job, I think. Right? I think that's like his first job in the industry. He's just trying to bump old elbows, with people that have more pull. And then Nellie arrives out of nowhere, like literally out of the dark. She runs into a statue and she's like, "I'm here for the party" or whatever. It's a great scene.
You know who I am, and like she's nobody, you know.
Yeah. And then she emphasizes another theme. This is so many themes being juggled in the movie.
Onion of themes.
She's like, you're either a star or you're not. You can't work to be one or whatever. I think
you don't become one. You are one. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that is proven time and again when Jack, at least in a couple instances of Jack Conrad in his movie set, where he is just so drunk and smashed, like he is gone. And then as soon as they say action, he's a professional. It's like
clicks right on. Yeah.
And the same thing happened for Nellie Leroy. She's just kind of standing there dumbfounded and shocked by everything that's going on. And then as soon as the director, who's played by Damien Chazelle's real life wife, and she's amazing in the movie, by the way. She's so funny. But she says action, and Nellie, like her face just lights
kicks
up.
right in. First time doing it too. Like it's never.
First time doing it. She nails it. And like even the director and I think her assistant director or producer are just looking at the script like, where the hell is she in the movie? Like, because she just takes over completely. And that just fed into the truth of what she said of like, yeah, you can't teach that. Like, literally, it has to be an instinct. But that's just one of the early themes of the movie, and then obviously it becomes a little more darker and tragic as it goes along.
Yeah, it does.
But it does start.
It's a ride, man. It's a ride of a movie. Right? Yeah.
It starts on that first act, incredible high, and then the second act is like chasing the high that you had, right? Mm-hmm. So there isn't a plateau in the second act. But it is a lot of the actors going, let's just like they're plateauing, but they're trying to chase the high again.
Yeah, and then the third recapture. Like, I mean, Brad Pitt even says, weren't their good old days good or whatever? It's just like they're even like waxing poetic about times that were just a few years ago.
And then the tragedy starts being introduced into the story. That's kind of when there's like a come down. And then like and then there is kind of like the very end is kind of like a. I don't know, you've recovered from the hangover, kind of in a sense. Mm-hmm. And it kind of gives like certain characters are getting a sense of clarity about what their life was and stuff like that.
Right.
Yeah. So it's exactly like a drug trip movie. It's kind of crazy.
It is, yeah.
Kind of how it's structured. Yeah, there's so many great scenes in that movie, dude. Like I watched it again too because hearing you describe the scenes that you were in as you were watching it and stuff, I was like, yeah, I just got to see the scene again. It's just so freaking.
Yeah. You were talking about like the scene where she's doing a sound movie for the first time, and like those are the biggest laughs you're gonna get. I don't know,
oh my God,
that's as big as laughs get in movies,
Yeah.
There's a lot of great humor in this.
He's like either a line director. I don't know what the job titles were back then, but he's either like a line director or producer or something. The guy that's just constantly yelling at people to be in their place and be quiet. He is so funny, dude. He is just dialed up to 11. Who sneezed? Who the fuck sneezed?
Yeah. But he's so kind at, you know what I mean? The ramp up that happens because of just like, and again, like, and we won't like describe the whole scene, but like it just kind of builds from like, a girl missing, like it's just a small cue, like I was just standing about an inch off of the, but the way that it graduates all the way into the chaos that it does, just from like a couple, that's an oopsie daisy here and a whoopsie daisy, and the scene's like 5 to 8 minutes, but like the way that it builds is just like, it's so crazy. So that chaos is still there. It's just kind of in a different form, whereas the first one is just chaotic and kind of a
chaos in a fun way, like a playful, even though
they're at a party and it's an orgy and it's nutty and everything. The trumpets are going off and it's all ramped up and stuff. This is the same thing, but like like you said, it's a circus, but a different kind of circus,
Yeah, exactly. Like they're clearly trying to chase the high that they had when they were making silent movies, like but now introducing sound, which is back then it was a totally new element. No AC, you had to like literally everybody had to be quiet because the mics were so sensitive and new and whatnot. And you see that evolve in the course of the movie and how they capture sound and stuff like that. But so clearly, like, stress was getting higher because time is money in that industry. But it was just so funny to see, like, a door open and some people flip out, Like, who the hell is coming?
It's like the CEO.
Mad.
How's it going? It's so good. Yeah, it's so good. And then
it's punctuated with, like, one of my favorite editing jokes that they do, where it's, like, something... the way that it ends is... I can't even describe it.
I'm just thinking about it.
I can't even describe it, but the way that the thing that it cuts to next just made me laugh even harder. And like, I feel like people were losing it in my theater during that whole shoot.
Yeah.
And then I feel like I was the only one that was laughing in the theater so hard at the edit because like I noticed those jokes, you know.
Sure. Yeah.
I loved when you picked up on the sound joke. It was a very Naked Gun Leslie Nielsen type.
Oh, it's such a Leslie. It's absolutely a Leslie Nielsen joke. Absolutely.
Yeah, they're putting sound in movies, and it's somebody farting or whatever, and like.
Yeah. Do people even want that? And then just diarrhea noises, like. I don't know.
Yeah, and then the guy's like, "Of course they do."
Yeah, of course they do. That's what they said. And it's like, it's such an obvious like after recording obvious. It's so obvious. It's ridiculous.
So dumb.
And it's just dumb farce humor or whatever. And I think that
and that's the entire sequence that we were just talking about, where Nellie's filming her first sound picture. That is just farce, like a stage play farce. Yeah. All the way through that sequence, and it's just such an old school type of humor that we just don't get anymore.
Yeah.
God dang, that movie is so special. I can't say definitively that the third act is as strong as the first two, but there's more to at least think about and chew on and stuff like that. Like
the movie slows down to a really deliberate pace because again, like we're in our come down, kind of phase of the movie. And that clarity starts to creep in for all the characters, that it's kind of like the end of the road for everybody in different ways, some more serious than others. But like it's a necessary slowdown, but like it's really hard to leave that kind of like frenetic energy of those first two acts kind of continue. But it's not, and I kind of described it last night, but it's not a whiplash effect. You're not like suddenly like, well, the movie slow down all of a sudden.
Yeah,
like,
that's why it
feels like a drug trip. It just kind of like you're suddenly kind of like, wait, am I not tripping anymore? Or am I not on high anymore or whatever? So it's
kind of like, in what further feeds the fact that the movie is like resembling a drug trip is like that whole sequence of Tobey Maguire. Imagine being on imagine coming down off of drugs in that scene, like in that moment, and you're like, where am I? I shouldn't be here. Like
this is seedy. Yeah, absolutely. Tobey Maguire, magnificent in this movie.
Oh my
You only get a little of him, but he shows up for this movie.
He's so creepy and like, I have an idea for a screenplay. And he's got like this freaking weird smile.
Ideas, and he's got like yellow teeth, like when he smiles, and they're just Joker yellow. Like,
man.
It's something, I tell you.
It's something else. I definitely haven't seen a performance like that from him, at least in a while. I haven't seen all of his movies or nothing, but he played. I know he played adult Bobby Fischer in that chess movie from years ago, and Bobby Fischer had some mental health distress.
I'm sure I saw that movie. I don't remember being like thrilled about it, but
it was fine.
That's
but
not
like,
his fault.
He delivered at least some manic episodes of stuff believably. But this was totally different beast. Like totally just a little more menacing and unhinged.
Sure.
But in like a it's like slightly beneath the surface type of way, where like you feel at any moment he could snap.
Yeah, big time.
But really, he's just a man child. Like he's just a guy who's just like, let's just go party, but party in a weird way, in a non-conventional way that no sane person would want to be a part of.
Sure. In this movie, there's a lot of moments that are just aimed to make you feel uncomfortable in this movie. But at the very next moment, it's like bright colors and sexy and this and that. Like I'm telling you, it's a roller coaster of just like hits of emotions, and you're just like, you're getting little bits of everything in this movie.
And I loved even just for a little bit, I loved Margot Robbie and Samara Weaving having a bit of a clash.
Yeah.
Because Margot Robbie is like taking over the movie set because she's such an undeniable star, and Samara Weaving was already an actor before that. So she's like, what the hell? Why are y'all like letting her control the script and the blocking and everything? So it was interesting that they wrote them two specifically to be clashing, because they're compared so often online for looking alike and stuff like that, for being a copy paste by God, basically. Like, why don't we just copy that person over to this person? Like, it just you look identical. Congratulations. It's just a great ensemble cast, and that's what made me think of Boogie Nights. Is like, because Boogie Nights is an insane ensemble cast. Just doing debaucherous things, and that's kind of what Babylon is too, in a sense.
Yeah.
It kind of felt like, who the hell is not in this movie, you know, at a certain point.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, and much like again, like Once Upon a Time is like that as well.
Yeah,
where it's just
it's an ensemble piece for sure.
People just keep on showing up in this movie, you know?
Right.
Wow.
Yeah, it's such a great movie, man. It's probably going to move.
I loved it.
Much like Triangle of Sadness, probably going to move further up in my my top. I think it's in my top 10 somewhere, but like below like Nope maybe, and it might go above.
It's definitely below Nope for me.
Yeah.
For now, I just saw it 24 hours ago. So.
Oh yeah, I know it's fresh. Yeah, and that's kind of how I felt about it the first time.
Talking about it all day at work today, and people were like, I don't want to see the La La Land's new movie. I'm like, okay. I mean, I get it, I guess, you know.
Yeah,
like, if you just hate La La Land, like, you don't want to see a movie by that guy, you know. Yeah. But like, I'll tell you, it's nothing like that movie.
Yeah, it's nothing like that. It's nothing like Whiplash. It's nothing like First Man. Definitely nothing like First Man. That movie's like a documentary. But there's still some camera work.
Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I was gonna say there's still some camera work in it that you recognize Chazelle for. Like he did very similar camera whips and tricks in La La Land. So I mean, if you recognize his,
there was a lot of similarities
Babylon
for sure.
But what were you gonna say?
It's so crazy that he would go from like something like, you know, Man on the Moon or whatever, First Man.
Yeah.
And like it's kind of like this is not a criticism. It's a vanilla movie. Like there's not a lot of like conceptual stuff going on in that movie. Like you said, it's like a documentary where it's like it's shot the way that it's shot and everything. And then this polar opposite movie where it's all style. Everything about it is style and loud, and there's nothing loud about it. So it's just interesting that like he can cover that kind of big of a spectrum in terms of his like.
You could argue even his composer that he's worked with in every movie, Justin Hurwitz. They were college roommates and stuff. Even in First Man, the score doesn't really do anything until he gets on the moon, and then you're like, oh, they're using theremin in this? That's pretty cool. Like you start to notice a melody and stuff like that. Whereas Babylon, there's just themes and melodies and motifs.
Oh boy, so many motifs.
Oh my gosh, dude. And that soundtrack is amazing. I went back and listened to it. It's long because the movie's long. It's like an hour and a half.
A lot of music got to fill up that movie.
But it is fantastic. It was just banger after banger, basically.
I agree.
It's definitely going to win the best score for the year at the Oscars.
I can't think of another movie that would deserve it other than Avatar. Obviously
Avatar, who deserves all the technical awards and the score.
I hope it wins everything. I hope it wins movie of the year.
Yeah. Oh, good lord, we're going too far. It's not April Fools yet. We'll get there. I think the next best score to me would be All Quiet on the Western Front. I think that got nominated this year. I think it did because that is a really good score. It's so good. And then Wakanda Forever had an awesome score. Like, in the moment in the movie when you see Wakanda Forever, it's like, yes, this is a good score. With that. And then when you go back and listen to it, it's like, oh, this is way more nuanced and like detailed.
The Mando guy did that. That's right.
Yeah, Ludwig. Yeah,
Ludwig.
He's so good, dude.
He's all right.
He's clearly Nolan's new composer guy for a reason.
Yeah.
It's like, he's only I get to emulate Hans while doing his own thing.
Well, even like Ludwig, like he created the Mando theme, which like everybody knows, like everybody on Earth knows that now. You know what I mean? Yeah. It might as well be the first 3 hits of like Star Wars. You know, like you know, A New Hope's theme or whatever. Like it's
exactly.
It's he's a music of a generation for sure.
Oh, for sure. So that's Babylon. The movie that I saw, I'm not really going to talk about it that deeply as Babylon, but Infinity Pool. That's the new one that I saw, and I saw it in theaters. But I did include it in my Sundance rankings because it was screening at Sundance at the same exact time. So I was like, well, you know, I'm counting it. Let's count it, guys.
Sure. Yeah,
but this is I forget his first name. I think his first name is Brandon. Brandon Cronenberg movie. So it's David. Do I have
David Cronenberg is the dad.
Okay.
And his son is Brandon.
I'm guessing myself on first.
I mean, might as well. Now that you're second guessing, I'm not sure anymore. But I feel pretty confident. But I'm not confident enough to be like, no, I'm standing my ground on
this. It is David. I'm sorry. I'm just so used to saying, oh, the new Cronenberg joint. But now there's 2 of them.
Now there's 2 of them. Yeah, they're doing kind of similar things a little bit.
Yeah, so. they very much are. Like I would. Yeah.
If you told me Possessor was a David Cronenberg movie, I'd be like, yeah.
Yeah. And if you saw this, especially after Crimes of the Future, you'd be like, yeah, it's a David Cronenberg movie. Because it's so similar in like in terms of pacing and how Crimes of the Future actually does more body horror than this movie. I feel like Brandon got all the body horror stuff completely out of his system for Possessor to a freaking hideous extent. Because I didn't.
Watch the director's cut. It's horrifying.
I really do have to watch that, and I
It's-
feel like I think there is an NC-17 cut of Infinity Pool just because of there are some drug trips that they have, and there's
Ooh.
imagery that they flash, and I
Yeah.
think he had to cut some of the imagery because it was like a little too sexual or something. So
I know
that's
he's
the
getting
only
mad
thing.
that people are worried about it. He's like, just go see the movie. Don't worry about what version you're seeing. Like in
Right,
the interview,
right,
he's
yeah.
like, I'm tired of people asking me about that.
Yeah, he did have to. That's how I know that what he cut from the movie is like, oh, it's just little flashes. Just go see the movie. You'll be fine.
Just please go see the movie. Yeah, you're not missing a deboweling scene. You know, like.
But this one's like definitely more grounded than like Possessor. Definitely has a high concept to it.
There's some sci-fi elements
in terms of the sci-fi element of it and how that ends up turning into a body horror type thing. This one does have a sci-fi element that is just incredible. And yes, there is body horror. The sci-fi concept does involve bodies and either mutilating them or stabbing them or whatever.
Cool.
I don't really want to get into what that is because I enjoyed not knowing anything about that when I went in. Like, I didn't know that's what kind of sci-fi concept it was. Like, I just didn't.
I have no idea what this movie's about other than vampire Eric is in it.
Yeah, you just know Skarsgård's in it. Viking guy, yeah.
The thing he's only been known for, true.
And then
never been in anything else. Yeah.
Never been anything else. And then Mia Goth is in it, who has been on a tear with like X and
Pro Girl.
Yeah. And she is so funny. There's a certain point where yes, she does get to do her unhinged Mia Goth thing. And she is so antagonizing in like a playful, annoying way to Alexander Skarsgård's character. His name's James, and just the way she says James, I have it in my head like I play it on a loop. It's so funny. It's like funny in a messed up way when you think about it. Like when you think back on it, I'm like, why did she have to say it that way? Yeah, she's just like incredibly cruel in the movie at times. But that's what you hire from Mia Goth for. You hired her to be like the occasional sweet girl and then to have a turn at some point, you know? She's just so good at that. But yeah, that is the premise.
If I were married to Shia LaBeouf, I'd probably have pretty easy turns too. So
yeah, I know. She's got to do something to tolerate that mess of a human being. So she plays like a girlfriend or wife to this guy that's also on vacation at the same resort that Alexander Skarsgård is at with his wife. And they meet, and Mia Goth is like, oh, I read your book. It's great. I'm a huge fan. And then they start having dinner together and stuff like that. So like that's where kind of it starts is like they're all on vacation together. And then the more they hang out, the shadier things get, the more often they hang out. And the more reckless they get, the more violent they get. And like, basically, it's just white people on vacation in a third-party country.
It's another one of these.
It's movies. Another one of those. It's
we started. I was hyped at the end of this episode. I'm sick of these movies. So.
There's so many.
Totally 180 turn, yeah.
but it's a horror version of that.
Like the menu then.
Yeah.
No, that actually makes me more excited to see this movie.
It's so funny watching people on like TikTok discover what horror comedy is. Like they're watching there's a scene in the menu where it's one of the biggest laughs, and I hate to spoil it, but I'm going to mention it. The chef asks somebody, somebody that went to Harvard or something, right? Did you see the movie?
Yeah, I saw the movie.
So the chef asks one of the dinner guests, like, who's like, please, I went to Harvard, I matter. He's like, did you pay for that, like through loans, or she's like, no, I had a full ride scholarship. Sorry, you're gonna die. It's like one of the best laughs in the movie. And TikTok's up there going, I thought this was supposed to be scary, and I'm like, have y'all not seen a horror comedy before? It's so crazy. Yeah. So there's some unsettling jokes in Infinity Pool. You're not going to laugh out loud and stuff like that, but there's definitely some like, what the hell is going on type humor that I feel like all the Cronenbergs are really good at now. Crimes of the Future, especially. That one's definitely way grosser than this one.
That's a gross movie, dude.
Oh man, yeah.
I actually like that movie a lot. So much squelching in that movie.
Oh my God.
So much gooey, sticky, slimy noises.
And not even squelching that needs to happen. They're sitting in a chair,
Yeah,
And,
and it, like, yeah, he'll like lean into a chair. And it's like, you know, just, what the? So great, yeah, squelch.
so yeah, Infinity Pool is really great to me. I really liked it. I ended up putting it, I think, somewhere at 4 out of 5 because it's definitely not a movie I'm gonna be like, oh, let me watch that again, man.
Yeah, I mean that's how I feel about most Cronenberg movies, where I'm like, glad I watched that.
Yeah,
But,
exactly.
I'm
Crimes
done
of
with
the
that
Future
one.
too.
Yeah.
At least they make movies that are designed to stick with you for
Sure.
years and years and years. Because this one definitely will. And so will Crimes of the Future, and so will another movie we're going to talk about later, probably in our Pick 5. Who knows? Anyway, that's my new movie. I do recommend it, at least to Kyle and anybody that, because I know you like Cronenberg stuff. Anybody that likes Cronenberg stuff, like, and if you don't know who Cronenberg is, and you've never really watched a body horror thing in your life, just don't start. I wouldn't start now.
Yeah. I don't. You would have found it by now if you're into that, you know.
Right.
And like, it's one of those things where, like, in certain rooms, I'm not telling people I'm a Cronenberg fan. You know, like,
right.
But you might like get put on a list or something.
Like, I'm not going to a family Thanksgiving.
I'm not going to work
like,
and telling HR that I'm into Cronenberg movies. You know, like, put you on a list for that. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. I'm on a watch list forever just for doing this. Honestly.
Yeah.
For admitting it here.
We both are. We can't fly anywhere.
So that's something new that we watched. Did you watch anything old? It can be a rewatch. Did you watch anything old that you want to talk about?
I just got done with a movie that makes me so hyped, Jeff, and it's The Raid 2. And yes. I'm telling you, man, I don't want to spend too much time because I know we try and keep these things a little shorter, but I could talk about this movie for literally ever.
Yeah.
I think it's in my top 10 movies of all time favorite.
Wow.
I think,
okay.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's just like an absolute action masterpiece. I think it's there are like that one fight scene at the end in the kitchen is hands down the best choreographed fight scene ever. Like yeah. Period.
Yeah.
Like, you're so tired by the end of that. After watching these people have an 8-minute fight scene, you're like,
yeah, it's 8 whole ass minutes.
Yeah. You're like, oh, my side hurt. And like, you're not doing anything. You're just watching it, you know? And talk about a director who knows how to let a scene breathe and stuff like that, you know? So like, he really learned from Hong Kong cinema to just like, you don't need to cut every punch. Like, I punch, cut, kick, punch, you know, cut. So it's not this cut up mess. It's like this really tangible, followable ballet of violence that I'm just super into. And the whole movie is just filled with amazing, you know, action, from like the car chase sequence where there's literally a kung fu fight in a car while like it's going at high speeds.
and they're moving the camera physically from one car to another.
Yeah.
With while like an assembly line of people that there's a behind the scenes featurette. I highly recommend people watch it because they did that for real. They were like the cars were driving. And they did an assembly line for the camera.
It's up there with Nolan making a hallway that actually turns. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
exactly. Like in terms of like how did they pull that shot off? Well, here's a whole thing about how they did that.
Right.
It's amazing. I think the whole movie is just absolutely outstanding, and it's actually a really good revenge crime story. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like you're going into like this standard story. Don't get me wrong. You know, it's not like painting any new beats or anything like that. Mm-hmm. But the execution of those beats is just a really confident like. Dive into the underworld and different crime families of the people who kind of run the city in Indonesia, and like, you know, main character from the first movie, which it's really weird. Like you only need to know like a couple things from the first movie for this movie to even make sense. You know what I mean? So I wouldn't suggest just watching this movie without seeing the first one. But they just take a couple key ideas from that movie and they're like, okay, let's expand on those in a really super big way. Whereas that movie is more about the action and less about the story. This movie is just as much about the story as the action. So like you really know what's going on with all these characters. So when their face gets beaten in, you're like, oh, okay, well that's his journey's done.
I guess
so. Like even that like little story with like the hobo hitman who's like he's got a kid and he loves his wife and his kid, but his wife is like completely ashamed of like what he does for a living and ostracizes him from the family. And you're like, oh, this is really sad. And then like there's like brutal stuff that happens to this guy. You know? Like in the very next scene, you know, and it's a great movie. It's just one of the all-time like hype movies for me. You know?
Me too. I'm in actually because you mentioned it in the chat, in our chat that you were almost done watching it or you're in the middle of watching it. I started it like an hour before we recorded because I was like, you know what? It's been a couple years, and I have to see I have to see the riot scene again. I have to
Did
see.
you see the prison? Did you see the
Yes,
prison?
I got past the prison, and now he's
There's so much of that's one shot. Like it's.
Oh yeah, it is
How did
miraculous.
they not get? And that's
Also,
another one where they show you how to make the scene, because they're like, we had to do the scene 1,000 times because mud would just splash onto the lens.
They have to
reset everything.
And I imagine the stunt work is especially difficult for somebody like Iko Uwais, who plays the lead, because he's got to run at the end of the fight.
He slips a lot.
He's running, and he's trying not to slip completely because he still has to fight people that run up to him.
Yeah.
So he's like trying to run to Ucho, I think that's his name.
Ucho.
The boss's
Ucho, yeah.
The mob boss's son. And he's trying to save him from an assassination attempt, but like he's just like trying to. And I just like in that moment I felt for the actor, like I was that poor actor fell on his ass so many times trying to do that thing. Like
for sure.
Yeah.
They said it was like one of the longest scenes that directors ever had to shoot.
That mud did look fun to play in, though. I'm not gonna lie.
It did, yeah. It looked very comfortable. If I had to get judo thrown to the ground, it might as well be in some squishy mud,
Yeah, it looked very squishy. Squelchy too.
Yeah, it's one of my all-time favorites to me, and I hadn't seen it in a while. It's on Netflix. It's really easy to watch. You can jump on there and give it a look. If you've never seen it before, like, please watch both of them. They're fantastic.
Yeah,
they're the reason why we have action movies the way we have them now. Is these movies?
Definitely, I agree. I think that's the only way to watch them is consecutive, because the Raid 2 picks directly up where it left off. And you need
seconds after.
You need to feel the stakes of what happens in the beginning of the Raid 2. Like, and you can't if you just see these people, what happens to the people from the first movie right away in the second movie, and you don't know who they are. Like, you just need to feel the weight.
You have to know. You have to have that setup for sure.
Yeah,
those are the elements I'm talking about. That like they just bring it. Like, you have to know those kind of final moments of that movie. To really make this movie like why he's on this mission, and it's
because at first he says no. He says no, not at all. I'm not going to do anything.
No. They're going to kill your family if you don't. It's like, oh, okay, well,
well, so be it.
Me up, I guess.
I'll be all right. That's a great movie. I'm still in the middle of watching it. The one that I chose to rewatch was Homeward Bound and The Incredible Journey.
Wow. Okay.
I don't know why.
I
think it was just because I had some stuff happen with my dog. I'm not going to get into it.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
I wanted to see a cute dog movie, and this was, in the history of Jeff, this was the first movie I ever cried at, according to my mom. Okay. This is the first movie I ever and I don't mean cried at during the movie because I was being unruly. I mean, I cried at because of a story beat in the movie.
Yeah.
And up until that point, I was kind of a demon child, and I growled a lot, and I did weird shit. So when I started
stuff, we're okay.
When the fact that I felt stuff so much when the old dog comes over the hill at the end. I mean, that's pretty much it for everybody. I mean, is that moment where the old dog is over the hill, and I start crying. That's when my mom was like, "Oh my God, he feels things. Thank God." Like, she was genuinely like,
"Oh yeah, right."
Thank God, you're human. Yay. I mean, it's a simple movie, much like the Raid 2. I mean, except obviously not as good. But
the dogfight scenes in the movie are not as well shot.
I can't believe the one takes that they did.
The one take. I haven't seen such great dog one takes since Milo and Otis,
Well, they abused animals in that movie, dude.
There are a lot of dead animals in that movie, too. They went through a lot of animals.
Knowing what I know about dogs, I don't know much about cats, except they're not willing to really do anything. They for sure put these animals through some hell to make this movie. I am certain of it. I'm like 99% sure.
There were no rules back then.
Yeah, they didn't. There was no I mean, sure, PETA existed, but it wasn't like they helped monitor movie sets or anything. They didn't care.
No. Yeah.
They didn't have any sway like that. So like there were some things that happened in it that I feel they just let the cameras roll, and they let the dogs do whatever, and then they had the voiceover come in and just explain what's happening. Like especially the American Bulldog, Chance. He's clearly like 1-2 years old. He's got a lot of puppy energy, and he's very frantic. And when he runs, sometimes he falls. And I think they just filmed that and left it in the movie. And then Michael J. Fox is doing the voiceover, going whoopsie, I mean. So some of it does feel like they, did shot it documentary style, like in a certain way. But some of it, I'm like, it's a little contrived. How do you get a dog to do that unless you're like or a cat, I guess, unless you're like just straight up throwing them into the scene, you know, like
Yeah. You're like, how do we get this dog to almost drown? I don't know. I think we almost drown it.
yeah. So that's
And the director's like, all right,
part of like adult me that felt weirded out by their actual
yeah.
But the part at the beginning where they're with the family and then the family leaves and then they're on this farm. They're literally on a farm. It's not a metaphor for them being killed. They're literally on a farm with somebody, one of the family friends, and they're being fed and stuff. And I'm like, cool, this is fun. I preferred at this rate, being the age that I'm at, I preferred seeing them interact with humans. That was just something that I apparently prefer seeing in pet movies now.
Okay.
But yeah, by the time they reunited with the family at the end, the tears came again. So like almost 30 years on the dot, I'm still crying at this movie. Yeah. And also, again, this movie is not like amazing. I purely nostalgia purposes, I love it. But because there are some moments in the script too where like the dogs and the cats are written to not understand what humans are saying at all. So they don't understand why their family is gone. You know.
Yeah. Right.
But you have Michael J. Fox making Arnold Schwarzenegger references. I'm like, so how does he know? How does a dog know about that? But they don't understand.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a quandary for sure. You know, I think it's more appropriate to like this movie than being a sociopath and being like, I really love Old Yeller, that feel good movie.
Yeah.
You know? So I think you picked the right dog movie to be nostalgic about at least.
I almost went with Hachi, A Dog's Tale, which is about it's a whitewash story, sorry, but it is about a true story of this dog in Japan. I think his name was Hachiko, who his owner went every time his owner would go to a train, the dog would follow him there every single time. When the owner would go to board a train to go to work every single day, the dog would do that. But then one time the owner goes to work, an accident happens, the owner dies. So the dog is just waiting at the train station. Like he runs to the train station and just waits there for him. And that's the movie in a nutshell, is like him waiting there for night. And this is a true story. He literally just hung out at the train station waiting for his owner, who was never going to come back. And the dog didn't know. So he became like a fixture of the train station that, you know, like passengers would like feed him and pet him and stuff like that. So he was still taken care of. It's just such a tragic story and like why dogs are the best. But like, they made a movie about it starring Richard Gere, you know, the Japanese guy, Richard Gere.
Richard Gere.
God, you did it, not me. You did it.
Are we not allowed to do that anymore?
But like he like passes, and then like it's a really short movie, but like sure. I think I cried through like probably half of the movie because it was just so fucking upsetting and also adorable at the same time. Because they cast a really cute dog to play the dog. He was like a one of those floofy dogs that are a little bigger.
Okay.
I can't remember what those are called. Mastiff. I'm not versed at all on dog breeds, like at all. Like, I just know the type of dogs that my friends and family have. That's about it, you know.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, this was the one I went on because I was like, well, at least I'll know I'll only cry at the ending.
Sure.
Whereas Hachi, which is on Netflix, I'll be like a mess the whole time.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's the one I went with for my old movie. So we'll go to our pick 5, and this is favorite movies we'll never watch again.
Okay.
Do you want to start us off? Throw one at me.
Yeah, I'll throw one at you. No, again, like I think we said at the top of the show, like I like a lot of these movies.
Right.
Never want to see any of these movies again. In fact, if you hear some of these suggestions and you run out and see these movies, and you're like, I didn't like that at all. This is not a list of suggestible, run out and go see it movies. I didn't choose Salo and all disturbing movies or anything like that. So, I tried to go for, if you did find your way to them, like there is something to enjoy. But if you didn't, no one's going to crucify you for it because these are pretty hard to watch movies. Oh, and the first one I picked that kind of falls under that is Hard Candy.
With Elliot Page and Patrick Wilson.
Wilson,
yeah. I only watched that within the last 5 years. That was the first time I ever seen it.
You gonna watch it again?
No, I'm good.
Yeah, exactly. It's a good movie. It is good, yeah. I'm pro mutilating the bodies of child molesters. So I'm pro the movie's message. it's a hard watch, and it's about really complicated subject matter. And it's a revenge tale, and revenge is had. And it's just a really rough watch, and it's not something I clamor to go back for. But if like you really want to see like Elliot Page like acting their face off at this time when they're like 14?
Yeah. Very,
young.
Adolescent,
You know what I mean?
Very adolescent. Yeah.
Acting their face off, dude. So
absolutely.
Love that movie. And Patrick Wilson does a good job too. You're not supposed to like him. He's a creeper,
and it's so perfect that they cast him in it because they don't reveal what he is until a little later in the movie.
Yeah.
And you start to understand the nature of what's happening.
Yeah.
He's such an unassuming person to cast in that role that it's so perfect. It's so perfect. That's what makes it so much more disturbing.
Yeah, a lot of it you don't really know.
Yeah, these people are like your neighbors and your everyday people.
Yeah, exactly. It's just disturbing. But
it's so messed up.
It's a good movie if you want to see people just acting their face off. I do enjoy it. It's just I look back on it and I go, I'm good on seeing that one again. And you can find that movie on a lot of most disturbed movie lists. I would say it's pretty low stakes in terms of like most disturbing. Mm-hmm. It's disturbing, but that list goes down some really weird rabbit holes.
Yeah, there's
borderline snuff films. So.
I think there are some that you and I are not going to mention for this. Like you mentioned Salo. I didn't put that on here because I don't love that movie.
I don't either. I think that there's important things to say about that movie, but not in a way where I'm like, you gotta watch it.
Yeah, at least
I have tricked a lot of couples into watching it for Valentine's Day, though. Can I get a Valentine's Day suggestion? I'll be like, Salo, watch Salo. Make sure your boo is there. Like, I may have ruined a couple of relationships.
Oh, it's so perfect.
You read about a movie before you watch it, guys. Like that's not my fault if you fall for it.
Yeah, you might need to, or at least check the poster, and you'll be like, "This doesn't look romantic."
Yeah, this isn't romantic at all.
Yeah, why is this
European flick? Just give it some time. It's European. Just give it some time.
If you look at the poster by itself, you're like, "Why is this naked person hiding in a corner, looking traumatized?"
Yeah,
it's clearly a romantic movie. We gotta watch it, guys.
We got lost. Lost to humanity mostly.
Yeah.
But that's my first pick. What's your pick?
The one I'm gonna go with. These are all for like a variety of reasons. Some of them are disturbing, but the first one I'm gonna mention is one that I just get too overwhelmed with emotion during, and that's Gleason. This is a movie from 2016. It's a documentary. It's about this former NFL kicker for the New Orleans Saints who is diagnosed with ALS, and it's about his journey with that. I don't know if he's still alive. I think he is still alive. But he's obviously not mobile anymore. He's like in a wheelchair and stuff like that. So seeing that journey at the same time my grandpa was going through it, and he did go through it, obviously. He didn't suddenly not stop going through it. I mean, it took his life, unfortunately. Yeah. But it was very like a raw thing like that happened when I watched the movie. And like there were grown-ass men in that movie that were football fans, or grown-ass men in the theater watching the movie that are clearly football fans. Like they're clearly dudes that are more bro-y than me, that were crying their eyes out during this movie, dude. It is it is such a hard watch because he's a dad, like his wife having to go through this stuff, having to hire a caretaker to do all this stuff he used to be able to do, while also him maintaining a good-natured spirit and sense of humor doing all of it. Like there's a part where ALS removes a lot of people's like ability to take a healthy shit, not to get too like gross about it, but there's a part in the movie where the caretaker has to come over and help him almost like plunge his asshole.
Okay. Yeah.
And he's like making jokes the whole time, like he's but that's a common thing for ALS. Like you lose you lose bodily functions all over your organs, so but it was like he's making jokes the whole time, and I don't know. It's the way he lightened it up and stuff. But I would never watch it again. You're literally watching human suffering for a disease that is incurable. There is no cure. Currently, there's no cure. Sorry, your ice bucket challenges didn't work. There's no cure. But yeah, it's just I'm just remembering the space I was in the theater when I saw that movie, and it was just nonstop tears after maybe half an hour into it. I can't do it again. I just can't.
I feel
but I do love it, and I do want people to see it at least once. I think it's on Amazon or something. I'm pretty sure it's streaming somewhere because it is fantastic. Anyway, what's another one of yours?
Another one of mine is kind of, and this one is maybe is a little more disturbing, and I like this movie for a couple of reasons. Just because there's not a lot of movies out there that a director gets to make once and then they have to just make it again the exact same way, but like American, and that's Funny Games.
Oh,
not a fun watch. Good movie.
Michael Haneke.
Yeah. I think
he's one of the only directors to remake his own movie in America.
But like scene for scene, almost line for line, like just with like different people.
Yeah. Except for Tim Roth, right?
Again, like if you want to watch something that just like is totally outrageously disturbing, this is a good stop for that. And I wanted to at least represent at least one of those movies on here that are just like. Yeah. It almost like you kind of feel like you're recommending something that's gonna like ruin someone's day whenever you hey, go watch this movie. It definitely ruined my day.
Man, it's definitely one of those.
And it's just it's a rough watch, and but it's really good. I really like Australian girl in this movie. I'm like blanking on names.
Naomi Watts.
Day to day. Naomi Watts. There you go. She's great in this movie.
She's so good.
And the dudes who played the killers, they're just so
Michael Pitt is something else. He's a different kind of menacing dude.
He is. Yeah.
He was that way in Hannibal as well until they apparently recast him. But apparently he's difficult. It sounds like he's difficult to work with. But that's the rumor that I heard is like, oh, this guy's. Oh, okay, never mind. In July 2022, he was arrested and charged with assault and petty larceny. After attacking another man multiple times. Oh, okay, so he's not great.
So he's just kind of a crazy person, maybe.
He, quite literally, he was hospitalized and deemed emotionally disturbed after being accused of throwing items at people from the rooftop of a building. So he's got some problems, man. Let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
So he's perfect for this role. That's what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, right.
I do remember I saw this version once. I have not seen the original, but my understanding is that it's almost a 1-to-1 remake. Because it's the same director, same writer. So he just remade his own version of a 90s movie with Naomi Watts and Tim Roth and stuff like that.
Right.
But yeah, I'm the same way. I watched it once. I was like, oh, that's wacky. Like, because there are some comedy elements.
There are, and it kind of makes you feel bad. You're like, why am I laughing right now? This movie's
I know, it's really
and that's part of it. That's part of the experience where you're just kind of trapped in whatever the emotions that the movie's asking you to meet it at. But
right,
it's what, dude. It's a movie I enjoy. Not one I recommend to anybody, But it's like when I'm thinking about movies, I'm like, I'm good on that one. This is like one of the very first ones that came to mind when I started crafting this list. I'm like, oh, I'm super good on that movie.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, same here. I feel you on that. My next one is let's just go Cronenberg. I listed The Fly here.
Okay.
I watched this for the first time as an adult, so I was like, I don't know. There was another movie that we mentioned that watched in the last 5 years. I can't remember what it was now, but I'm pretty sure I watched this one in the last 5 years too. It was for when we were doing our podcast. It was 2017. So it was way longer. So we were doing 2017. We were doing like, what were the best movies of 20 years ago in 1997 or whatever, or 1987. We were doing our tournament podcast. So for homework, I watched The Fly, and that ended up being my favorite movie. That ended up being my favorite movie of that year. Like it overtook whatever was in my number one because this movie is just so freaking good.
It is,
but it's equally gross, and I can't watch it again. Like I just can't.
No. Yeah. And like it's not like you're showing up. It's like, well, I got to show up for the Goldblum sex appeal, like
right?
Because that goes away pretty quick in this movie.
It does, yeah. And there's just something about watching. I don't know, something about with horror movies and body horror movies, especially where you're watching skin like fall off in such gross, incredibly vivid ways.
Yeah,
that's like a thing that makes me squirm the most. Like that and. Sometimes stabbing scenes make me go, "Oh, stop! Oh God!"
Yeah.
Especially
like Cabin in the Woods is filled with that Eli Roth movie where it's like they're just like itching their skin off. I'm like, can you stop it?
Oh, that's Cabin Fever, right?
Cabin Fever, not Cabin in the Woods. Cabin in the Woods is
Cabin Fever.
One.
I remember. There's like a girl.
Cabin Fever, like she like sticks her whole finger. Like it's just gross, dude.
Ooh. Oh, I don't really like that. I thought that movie was actually kind of trash, but
no, it's not. It's not a recommendation.
No, it's not a recommendation. But you're right. That
one on topic.
You're like, that is a movie that definitely has one of my most squirmiest things I see in movies, and that's when skin is like being peeled off, and feels real. Like it's
too close. The close-ups
yeah.
are good. The makeup's too good. I'm like, no thanks.
Yeah, exactly. The Fly is just like that for me. You
Yeah,
know,
yeah.
he does have that brief like honeymoon phase of superhuman abilities where it's fun, and then it
Yeah.
takes a turn. It takes a
He's
turn
naked
way
in the
south.
corner, like sticking to the walls. Yeah. Yeah.
Movie's so good though.
It's good. I like that movie.
So it's definitely a favorite in a traditional sense. What's another one of yours?
I'll stick to Cronenberg and say Possessor, which we already talked about earlier.
Yeah.
You know, this is one where it's like I can kind of go back and watch The Fly. Like there are other, like, you know, I may not go back and watch like Crimes of Humanity. You know, there might be a few that I don't go back to. But Possessor was one because I accidentally watched the NC-17 version and just wasn't aware that there was like a kind of a nuttier version. And while that movie's not like totally off-putting or anything, like it's got enough imagery where I'm like, yeah, I saw that and that was wacky.
Yeah.
But I actually really enjoy like the sci-fi elements in that movie and kind of a lot of the other kind of like stabs that movie takes.
I love the sci-fi stuff in it. That's so rad.
It's just like I don't. Maybe if I watched the other version, there was some lighter, not as much. Maybe I'd be a little more like, yeah, let's watch that, or I'm gonna tell someone about that movie. But like this is another one where I'm like, boy, I mean, I guess go and see it if you're into this stuff. I mean, I liked it, but like, I don't know. If you're not initiated, just don't check it out. You know. So again, I really like a movie, but it's just gross enough where I'm like, yeah, all right, yeah, okay.
I like how this topic accidentally fits the Infinity Pool coming out this week, this past week. I didn't mean to do that. It's just kind of
we did, yeah, it's a Cronenberg cast.
Yeah, pretty much. It's a Cronenberg podcast now. We're Cronacast. But yeah, that movie, I remember not really caring for the theatrical version that I saw. I remember liking it in concept, but not execution. And then I kept hearing, not just from you, but I kept hearing from others that saw both versions that were like, no, the director's cut. You have to watch the director's cut. And I still haven't watched it yet, just because it's such a messed up movie.
It is, yeah. Yeah.
I'm like, it's
how
already
hard
dark
of a sell
enough.
is that? You're like, okay, I guess I'll watch a version that's rated more horrifying, you know?
Yeah, exactly. Another one of mine is, this one is just because the movie's long. And there's a lot of stuff in it where nothing's happening, but it's so gorgeous. And it's one of Stanley Kubrick's movies. It's Barry Lyndon.
Okay, I haven't seen this movie.
Totally content never seeing this again. And I think this is a movie that is kind of getting reanalyzed lately, and people are like, no, that's a classic. That's a classic, blah, blah, blah. But it is pushing 3 hours. I don't know if it's at 3 hours or maybe over it. But it's long, and it's about this insignificant guy, and that's probably why there's no urge to go rewatch it, is because he's such a boring character.
Sure. Okay.
But it's deliberate. It's him trying to just, you know, go through this, because this movie occurs like what in the, I don't know, I always think Renaissance whenever I think like Shakespearean times or whatever. Victorian era. Let's just say Victorian era. So it's a long time ago, right? So he's just trying to work his way from low class to upper class, right? And he's just minding his business in the shadows while he does it, and being the most boring person possible, an insignificant person possible, in a society that's very classist. So like, yes, there are some tragic moments, and he does try to do like a quote unquote heroic thing at the end. I guess it's heroic in terms of the way Kubrick does heroic.
Okay, sure.
You know, it's like still there's something messed up about it, but
he's not a knight in shining armor.
Yeah, no, not at all. Not this guy. But that's the only thing. That's the thing, is like the main character is so, like, when I think about it, it's not that it puts me to sleep because it's so boring. It's just kind of like, it's such a cookie cutter white guy. Like, it's just like, so. It's like immediately puts me off to wanting to watch it again, especially knowing the length. But if you want to see some magical, like, it is truly incredible, the cinematography. And the score is something that the Raid 2 uses. The score is that theme that's da 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 da. That's that theme, which happens when the not Mad Dog character dies or whatever.
Yeah, totally not Mad Dog, where they put gray in his hair. Dies,
yeah,
you know?
totally.
Love that scene. Love that song.
Yeah. So that's the thing with Raid 2 that makes me think of actually Kubrick the most. Because in the execution of like the long,
there's a lot of super symmetry, like in like the restaurant shot, and like so many shots in that movie. Even like when he's in the car, like how the camera's like centered directly on him, and
Yeah.
shoots to the top of the car while he's doing everything. Just it's very Kubrickian. Yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of that stuff. There's a lot of that I guess they call it 1 point perspective, where it's like you put your finger in the center of the camera and it's just squares around it, like it's the center. Anyway, yeah, that's kind of actually what Barry Lyndon. I think of Barry Lyndon when I watch the read too. I'm like, oh yeah, that's the same exact song. But Barry Lyndon plays that song through all of the entire thing.
By the time, like 3 hours later, you're like, I hate this song.
I love it's hard to say that I loved it the first time I watched it. It's one that I had to kind of look up and discover more about and what the intention was with the character to fully appreciate and admire more. But the cinematography on a technical level, he had to build a new lens so he could film in candlelight for real. Instead of using fake lights to light up a scene that's all in candlelight, because they didn't have electricity back then. He was like, no, we're going to film for real candlelight when we're inside at night. And he had to
cool. Oh, go ahead.
He had to make a completely new lens for that. That was more sensitive. Yeah. So that, on a technical level, crazy to watch that movie. But yeah, sorry.
It's no James Cameron who created a new camera to shoot CG. So,
I'm pretty sure
let's give credit to where it's due here.
James Cameron created water for that movie. Okay,
he invented water. Yeah,
he invented water for that movie. Let's
he's like, I had to create a whole new underwater camera. I'm like, you did that already. He's like, for my fake, alien movie. I'm like, shut up,
dude.
That
already for
get out of here with all that. Yeah. Sorry, that's our weekly jab.
That's our weekly James Cameron dig.
Sorry about that, yeah.
We didn't wait till the box office recap to do that. So what's another one of yours?
So this is a movie, and I remember, my 4 a.m. hate watch that I like to do. Sometimes I wake up at 4 a.m. I just can't get back to sleep, so I'll throw on like a garbage town movie.
Oh yeah,
like Fast and the Furious, something like that. So it's something I know I'm just not gonna enjoy. Right. So who cares? It's 4 a.m. Like, you don't have to put your whole brain into it or whatever. Well, one morning I woke up and I was very awake, and I was like, yeah, let's watch something with a little more meat on the bones. Let's watch a good movie. So I put on Detroit. Not a way to start your day.
No, not at all.
Can I just say, let me get the good stuff out of the way for us. This is like one of the most well acted movies I've seen, and some of the best performances of all the people in this movie, like Will Poulter and why am I blanking on Finn's name right now?
John Boyega?
Yeah, John Boyega. Like, it's like you're talking about career performances for these guys, and it just doesn't help that, like, when you're trying to start your foot on the right day or whatever, like, the whole movie is just tragedy. It's horrific, real, stuff that really happened,
really
type
happened,
of tragedy, and it's a super hard watch, but like, it is genuinely and objectively, if you can use that word, an absolutely great movie. Yeah. It's just not one I'd ever want to watch ever again because of how hard of it is to digest and really sit through, because it's just it's traumatizing. Yeah. And that's coming from a white guy watching a movie happening to a different, like watching that is just like, oh, this is horrific. And it's hard to watch humans do that to each other, on any level.
That's a great pick, especially because I did really like that movie when it came out.
Me too. Yeah.
But there was something about, like, yes, that was my immediate reaction too as the credits were rolling, was like, I don't think I ever need to see this again. Like,
it ruined my whole day. Like, my whole day, I was like, I'm just gonna stay in bed today. Yeah. It was a Saturday, I was like, fuck today, dude. This is awful. What do you want to go out there and like all
so horrible
bullshit's going on in the world, like, fuck this,
And you should have just picked the Rock movie.
I should have picked the with the movie with the spinoff with them too, with the Hobbs and Shaw. I should have watched Hobbs and Shaw. Yeah.
Shobbs, yeah.
Oh, God, yeah, I really messed up that weekend, but whatever. I love that movie. It's a really hard watch, and I would never watch it again. I actually do suggest people go out and watch it though. Like,
me too, man.
I think it's super important.
Many great performances in
and
that movie.
It's got great performances, and it's an all-star cast of people you recognize who've never done maybe stuff like this before. Like, Will Poulter is that creepy kind of like weird kid from We Are the Millers, and then he like is the most antagonist, scary person in the entire world. Like, by the end of this movie,
right?
It's just like it's a total night and day thing. And now this guy's like, he's got a real career ahead of him. He's actually doing a lot of stuff, and he's dipping his
Adam Warlock, man. I'm trying to remember who else was in that movie, because there was an ensemble of people in it that were not yet major stars, and I feel like this movie kind of made them stars. The guy who played Larry Reed, Algie Smith, he was a singer. He was also a football player that dated Sydney Sweeney's character in the first season of Euphoria.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, he's amazing in that movie.
He's
He
great in
should
this.
be
I forgot that
way
he was
more
in that.
stuff.
Yeah.
Dude, he's so good. Jacob Lattimore, I barely remember. Jason Mitchell, I remember from being in what's the other movie? Straight Outta Compton. I remember him from that. Caitlin Deaver's in this. That's right, because it was
Caitlin Deavers,
black people were partying, black guys were partying with white girls, and that was like in Detroit. That was like, no, don't do that.
At that time.
So like, at that time.
Sadly, maybe still. I don't know.
It's a weird
world. It's a weird world out there,
Depending on where you go, I mean, Alabama. So I mean,
Alabama, some parts of Texas.
Yeah, exactly. Misery in America. It's just any other whatever.
Yeah, it's a hard but important watch, and I felt like it was one that like kind of worked its way on my list. The more I was like working out, like what kind of movies should I represent on this list? Because I think again, good movie, really important. Just it's a one and doneer for sure.
I'm gonna go with for the next one. I'm gonna go with a Denis Villeneuve movie.
Okay.
That might be surprising, but this is one of his French movies. So, I mean, that's not the reason I won't watch it again. I don't want to watch it because there's freaking French.
It's French. I gotta read, and that romantic language makes me feel sad.
And that's enough said. Anyway, the movie's Polytech. I still don't know how to say it. Polytechnic or Polytechnic. Yes, it's a school shooter movie. Oh
boy, that's why I won't see this movie. It just seems like a hard watch.
It's very. I mean, I use the word harrowing to describe 20 Days of Mariupol because that movie is legit capturing for real horrors and tragedies. This is shot. Yes, it is shot in black and white, but it still feels like he's shooting a documentary handheld, and you're in the room for all this stuff. It feels way too real, man. And there is this is based on a real shooting that happened. I think it's in Montreal, hence all the French talking. Where this the shooter's manifesto, so to speak, was, he was an incel. Women are the worst, and it's their fault I'm unattractive or whatever. So he was going into school and shooting all the girls. Like he would actually have, he would go into a classroom and have the men leave and leave the girls there, and the men would just be like, okay. So it's like the movie is also kind of assessing how men reacted in that scenario. A little too eager to comply. Not really defending women, so yeah, I mean, there's a lot of guilt that's kind of being compounded in the movie and like conveyed, and they want the viewer to feel that like in the story and stuff, because there is like at least one of the male characters and one of the female victims that the movie kind of focuses on a little bit. I mean, they all kind of jumble together because it's kind of black and white, and they're all white, so I mean. So it's kind of like, they all look like to me. I don't know, man. But they do focus on a couple characters' dynamics and how it impacts them specifically. And yeah, it's just incredibly unsettling, dude. It's like, I almost went for like something like Schindler's List, but that's a little too obvious. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it is. And like, I can see a reation to watch that again if you're like trying to analyze it.
I actually do enjoy watching that movie. I don't enjoy what's happening in the movie for a few scenes, but I actually do enjoy watching it. Like, it is good. Like, it's there's a lot of great stuff in that movie. This one, I don't know anybody in this movie. It's not really a cast of names, but it's fantastic. It is really, really good and like really well shot. And the way they put it together is well, at least Denis specifically, it is like you're in the school with them, and you're trapped in there with them, and you don't really have a way out and stuff. It kind of assesses, like, it really does put you in the school shooting. Like, not that I ever wanted to be in one in a movie, but you know what I mean? Like, watching a movie, but like, it is kind of like, oh, that's what that's like the chaos in the cafeteria, like people just running. Like, I've just never pictured it before. Like, I don't go out of my way to watch TikToks or Twitter videos or whatever of people live streaming a shooting. I don't do that. Like, so this was my first time seeing something like that unfold, and it felt so real. So yeah, I'll never watch that again, but it is outstanding. Depending on who you ask, I guess. But if you're asking me, it's outstanding. So let's go to are we on our final one?
This is the final one. Yeah. So I actually really love this movie. But I remember like when I wrapped it up, I had so many good things to say about it, and just thought it was like a really wacky time. But I remember as the credits were rolling, I was like, that's it for me. And it's Climax.
Oh man.
Boy, I love this
man,
movie.
love
I think
that
it's
movie.
so great, but like here's another movie that's like simulating a trip, but like more literally than, Babylon. Literally. I mean, the whole concept of it is like this theater troupe goes back to their practice studio or whatever, and they're having a rap party, and someone just slips some real high grade LSD into the punch, and as everyone's drinking it, people start realizing that something's a little off, and insanity. It's just everything just dissolves into insanity. Like it's not a fun hippie like, oh, we're all doing drugs type of movie. It's kind of like, oh, this LSD is evil and it's making everyone like become evil and like lose their minds literally.
Like they want to hurt each other.
They don't trust each other, and there's like all this like tribalistic, almost like faction splitting off and everything like that. And just the way that it's shot, like, there are some main areas, like the main like room where everyone's like dancing and stuff like that. And then, there's the hallway, there's the bathroom where the kid's being kept, which is its own horrifying thing,
Yeah.
And then there's like kind of the boarding rooms in the back that they kind of like walk back in. And the way that the cameras like shuffle behind them, like as they're going down the hallways to go like to the bedrooms, and just the way that like the scenery changes in this movie, and the way that like the music will start dying down, the lights are a little different, and it's just like it's really unique visually how they kind of capture maybe what it's like being on drugs and like walking around into different like areas that have different vibes that are being exhumed by either people in them or the lighting in them or whatever, because some people are just like creepy in this movie. So when they come up and they're being creepy and like this character's tripping, like there's a lot of disconnect and weirdness going on. You don't really know, and you as a viewer, you're just kind of in this movie tripping with them, I guess, because you don't really know what's going on or who to trust or what's real and everything like that. And it gets really dark. There's a lot of really dark stuff in this movie.
Man, so
and it's another movie I would never recommend. Like I don't know who I'd recommend this movie to. Like maybe if you love Suspiria, like maybe go see this movie because they both kind of have a similar kind of dream state weirdness to them, But like it's a fantastic movie. It's just I don't know if I need to relive something like that again because I remember almost everything about it. It's so memorable. Like I just don't know what I would get out of a second.
I remember the movie, and this had to have been deliberate. I remember how he opens the movie with them just dancing and having fun. Yeah. And the music is it's like the music is on a loop on the same song. For like 15 minutes they're dancing and you watch them and it's uncut. It's uncut dancing and it's just you're hypnotized by it, dude. Like so I mean, it finds a way to, or at least if you're us, I guess, you find the director finds a way to hypnotize this audience into the movie, so that way you can't look away when the horrifying stuff starts happening.
It's again. There's some stuff.
There's some people that might really turn it off 10 minutes in, and they're like, okay, it's the same beat, and they're still dancing. What are we doing?
There's an artsy fartsy nature to it. For
there
sure,
is, yeah.
It might be considered to some like indie garbage.
European
indie garbage, Euro indie, whatever.
Yeah.
But
because it is funny too to think about. Like I remember because I was watching on my computer when I saw it, and I had the time mark or whatever, going across, and it was like at the 20-minute mark, the title of the movie popped up, and I'm like, really? That's the start of the movie?
yeah.
Is them just dancing like endlessly? That's so funny.
Yeah.
Oh my god! And it was before they even drank any of the spiked.
No, they're not even on drugs yet.
Yeah, they're not even on drugs yet.
You would have to be on drugs to dance that long to the same beat.
Oh my god!
It's nutty. It's a nutty movie. I absolutely love that movie. Maybe I'll find myself wanting to watch it again one day, but like my immediate reaction to this day, I'm not running off to go watch this movie again. It's just I got it.
Yeah,
I got it the first time.
No. I get it. Thank you.
I get it. I get what you're doing.
I did. Right? I think I did have it somewhere in my 10 for that year. Whatever.
I think I did too. Yeah, I think
just undeniably like
hypnotizing is the right word for it.
Would and not leave my brain.
Not to keep on like compared to Suspiria, but Suspiria had a similar hypnotizing kind of vibe to it as well, where you're just kind of like drawn into what's going on in that movie.
And there's creepy dancing in that movie, so it's kind of
and there's creepy dancing in that movie.
Yeah. And some of the dancing is, I don't know how they did it. Body horror. The one scene with the one mirror scene where it's kind of like, I guess the witches or whatever, not to get into spoilers on that movie, but the witches that run they're witches that run the ballet studio cursed this dancer that misbehaved or something. So her dance is being forced to mirror what Dakota Johnson dances doing in another room. But she's like thrashing around and her body is contorting, and it's like,
I remember that. Yeah. Oh,
and
boy,
she's
yeah.
like, when by the end of the scene, she's like on the ground and like a ball, like just completely contorted, spitting up something, and I'm like,
yeah,
I don't need to see this again.
That's experience another movie where I'm like, love that movie. I'm good.
I'm good. Yeah.
What's your last one?
My last one is Requiem for a Dream. I saw this. I was working at Blockbuster when so this is like obviously 2002, 2003.
Okay.
Maybe 2004 too. Some of 2004. But anyway, the point is that was when I first watched it, and I think I watched it alone and showered 6 times after. No, I didn't watch it. I didn't shower that many times. But it was definitely something that I finished, and I was like, what do I do? Like,
yeah, right.
Myself. I was a teenager, and
there's an emptiness at that.
If
you wanted Dare, like, you should have just showed kids this movie instead of the whole Dare program.
Yeah, get your furry stuff.
Because this movie kept me sober for as long as I could.
Oh yeah, same here.
Yeah, I was like, I'm never doing anything,
because
it's horrifying.
Because it's speed and heroin are like the main focus of this movie, right? So I've done a few things around those, but I've never done those things because this movie emphasized how harmful this could be.
Yeah, so you scared straight. It scared you straight.
It scared me straight on those drugs in particular. I watched it 20 years ago, right? Like watched it when I was working at Blockbuster, and I still vividly remember specific shots and scenes and arcs.
Really well shot. That's the thing. It's like it's beautifully shot about the most horrifying stuff in the entire world.
Absolutely. Like I still remember what Jared Leto's arm looked like by the end. I still remember what was she taking? His mom, Ellen Burstyn.
It was speed.
It was
like weight loss pills, but like it's speed.
Oh, that's what it was.
Yeah.
It was weight loss.
It's supposed to be mirroring kind of like the 1940s and 50s Leave It to Beaver mom like speed craze.
Yeah, so that's right. It was weight loss pills. I was trying to remember what the benefit was for her.
Yeah, right. Yeah.
But I still remember those like manic episodes of her like constantly cleaning her house and like just not knowing what to do with herself and like just antsy. I remember all of that.
Her drug addict son when he came he clocked it immediately.
Yeah.
It's like she's on what he does.
Exactly.
Stuff that he does.
I remember Damon Wayans.
Yeah, he's good in this movie too.
Yeah, he's great in the movie. I remember him having sex in the movie. That's all I remember from him.
You see some booty, man.
Booty. And then Jennifer Connelly, she's got some good scenes, dude. Let me tell you.
She's got some kind of messed up scenes too, man.
Very messed up.
It's so funny because I think of Jennifer Connelly as like this, like just pure soul or whatever. She is not pure in this movie. She is so impure.
I'm honestly surprised. Like, I mean, when you think of her work after that movie, it's like, how did the director talk her into doing some of that stuff? I don't think she did that stuff for real, obviously. Like, I mean, it's a movie after all. But like, especially at the end where like you're seeing everybody's at rock bottom and the movie just ends. The movie just ends on rock bottom. There's no...
For every character.
Well, at least I experienced that. Like, there's no like come around, whatever. It's just like, no, addiction is awful. And
if you
it's gonna ruin
die,
your life.
you survived with so much guilt and consequence, and
and you'll just be stuck around rich dudes throwing money at you while you're ass to ass with the stranger. So just be careful. Ass to ass.
Ass to ass. Someone screams it in the background. It's just a weird scene. Yeah,
it's so wild. Darren Aronofsky was on some crap for. I mean.
Say that after Pie.
I know. I was gonna say. I say that.
Wild.
Pie came out before this, so I guess he was.
No, if you saw Noah first and you're like, "Oh, the guy didn't know it. Let's check out this movie, kids." Like you're probably gonna be in for a pretty fucked up time. But like, Noah was pretty weird for him. It was a weird movie for him. But like, the fountain is pretty weird. Like it's maybe not on this level, like this kind of grotesque, like mortal level, but like, he's just weird. He's a weird artist.
It's definitely a favorite. Like it's not my top 100 of all time or nothing, but it is definitely like highly rated. At least
me too. I absolutely love this movie. This movie I did show a lot. Like it's like a reluctant rewatch. Man, I was like, dude, you've got to see this movie. We're young and like I feel like I found something kind of smart and adult. So I'm like, I gotta show people this so like people know that like I'm into movies, right? So it's like it was a badge of honor movie for me.
Oh yeah,
because
I can
not a
see
lot
that.
of kids are just like going out of their way to watch a Darren Aronofsky film. You know
No,
what I mean? Like, it's
this
not...
was a movie I just internalized personally as a kid. Like, and I've never
Mm.
told anybody I watched it. Never
Yeah, I've never told anybody.
never
this,
recommended it. Like, I just internalized all that trauma that I watched.
Yeah, you gotta
and
spread that
just-
trauma around. That's how you get rid
just
of
let
it.
just let it drive my non-drug use. That's basically what I did with that
Yeah.
movie. So in a way, it's inspiring, but just never watch it again.
It's a clean story, guys.
Yeah. So that's our pick 5 for this week. I don't know what we're gonna do next week. Pick 5 and America's box office. I'm just gonna recap really quick, not to dwell. There's a lot of same movies unfortunately, from the last week. So number 5 is Mithrigan, still holding strong in the top 5.
Wow.
How is A Man Called Otto doing so well still? That's crazy. It's number 4.
People like Tom Hanks. I don't know.
I don't know how it's above Mithrigan, which I'm always going to call it that. But I don't know how it's above Mithrigan because that movie came out before or after, whatever. Anyway, number 3 was Pathaan. Pathaan. It looks like it's a Bollywood. It might be in Bollywood or an Indian movie. Yeah, it's an Indian.
Is this world box office?
No, this is domestic. They show Indian movies everywhere now. Like it's kind of wild.
Yeah.
It's great though. I mean, cool, man. More audiences need to find these movies.
I'm all about it, dude.
Look at the response to RRR last year.
Yeah,
like,
people.
A lot of people need to find these movies. You know. Number 2 is Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, still doing really well because it's a great movie. And then number 1 is some dumb movie about water. Nobody wants to talk about it anymore.
This cup of water I'm drinking is more interesting than what you're talking about.
Yeah, I know. This is the way of my water. It's going to my mouth. Anyway, that's all we got for this week. Next week, or whenever the next episode comes out, we'll talk about something else. I don't know what's... M. Night Shyamalan is coming out with a new movie. I don't know. I'm probably going to talk about that on Current Gen, though.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, I'll figure out what we're going to talk about. But
anyway, I saw someone go, this is why we love M. Night Shyamalan. I was like, when did we start loving? Like, this is why we fell in love with him in the first place. I'm like, what are you
talking about?
Where is this time? Yeah, I guess they're talking about Signs, maybe. I don't know. But...
he had 3 movies in a row for me. He had 3 movies in a row that I really, really liked.
People like Unbreakable and Sixth Sense. Yeah.
Sixth Sense.
I'm being reductive.
Were like 3 in a row of like, for me, movies that I just loved and could not stop watching at that time. Like I just absolutely love those movies.
Yeah.
And then after that, we know what happened. Avatar.
Remember that movie about how the devil took over an elevator or something?
I forgot he did that one. Yeah, he did. Yeah. And that was like my first time seeing Logan Marshall Green in a movie, and now he's everywhere. So thank goodness for that, I guess.
Yeah, I guess it panned out for him. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, there was like an old lady in it who was like, I think she ended up being the devil in it. Spoilers on that movie.
Spoilers for a movie that you shouldn't watch. So.
Yeah, it's like a COVID, not COVID movie.
Yeah.
It's pre-COVID, but they shot it like we don't have a budget, so just go in an elevator for 2 hours.
Yeah, that's all. It's like phone booth, but like there's no city around the phone booth.
Yeah. Oh man. But thanks for those of you that are watching our crusades, I guess, in the world of cinema, and we're gonna keep at it as long as we can, as long as until the wheels fall off, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Until Tim removes
until we all fall into our heroin addict ways, like Jared Leto did.
Yeah.
And like I joked about this. Remember we saw Like Him? Remember that?
Remember
he was in that movie, and we're like, yeah, I like that guy. And then now we're all like, get this guy away from me.
He's gonna be in
when he got announced for Tron. Everyone on Earth was like, ugh, everyone on Earth threw up at once. Like I'd never seen anybody agree so much on something.
All of us just Team America'd out and just threw up in an alley somewhere violently for several minutes.
5 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah. God, I love that scene so much. And it just when you think it ends, the music swells up and he starts doing it again. It's so stupid.
That's Stupid Comedies next week.
Yeah. That's not a bad idea, actually.
That's a pretty good idea. Yeah.
All right. Thanks for those of you that continue to watch us. So you can find the podcast on Twitter at least, current_cinema. We do have our own feeds. Appreciate you if you subscribe to all those. We do have our own podcast feeds. We are going to stay on the YouTube channel for Current Gen Podcast if you want to watch our videos there. But yeah, we'll be back with more, guys. Yay. Come back and hang out, movie fans. Wieners. Oh, wait. I forgot to do the traditional ending. So thanks for coming around and, really appreciate it. And,